marketing and RevOps teams. But HubSpot has a few key advantages that make it a better fit for most businesses. First of all, HubSpot is a full revenue operations platform. It's not just marketing automation. It includes your CRM, sales, service, operations, marketing, and data hub all in one place. It even allows you to build a full-blown website and e-commerce tools. Overall, it tends to be more cost-effective. Marketo often requires expensive add-ons, whereas HubSpot has that ability to build things natively within the platform. It allows you to have shared reporting, life cycles tracking, and also that built-in sales attribution tool, which marketers are always looking for. Finally, HubSpot is just far easier to adopt. Marketo usually requires deep specialists, but the HubSpot interface allows you to work with junior marketers and even apprentices. Overall, HubSpot's interface is built for wider use across businesses. If you're thinking about moving from Marketo to HubSpot, it's important to understand what a migration process involves to make sure it's done successfully. One of the biggest mistakes people make when migrating from Marketo to HubSpot is trying to migrate everything exactly as it is. Therefore, you would just be copying and pasting your existing problems into a new platform. And HubSpot doesn't quite work the same way that Marketo does. So broken workflows and messy data will follow you unless you clean things up first. Most Marketo accounts do have outdated nurtures, old scoring models, unused lists, and even zombie automations that will still be running in the background. Before migrating, you will need to audit the essentials: your database health, your automation, key marketing assets and integrations, and reporting. The goal is simple: know what to keep, know what to rebuild, and know what to delete, and start afresh in HubSpot the right way. One of the first challenges when moving data from Marketo to HubSpot is that they speak slightly different languages. Just like someone could speak French and someone could speak English, another speak German. But these things can be translated. Early on in your migration process, you need to look at the names of your Marketo fields and compare them to HubSpot property names so that you can make sure you've got the right information on the contact, companies, and deals. Where you don't have built-in HubSpot properties, you will need to create custom properties to connect HubSpot to your existing Marketo fields. It's also important to align those drop-down values and pick lists so your reporting stays consistent. Do not add a plain text field when a drop-down should be there. And finally, don't migrate everything. Remove those outdated or unused fields and only bring over the data you're actually going to use going forwards. You can get rid of all those duplicate fields which have been causing you an absolute nightmare in your reporting. A migration is also the perfect time to clean up your data. If you've been using Marketo for many years, your database probably includes lots of duplicate, unsubscribes, bounces, bot leads, and incomplete records. And because HubSpot pricing is based on marketing contacts, those bloated lists can quickly increase your costs. HubSpot is far more cost effective when you truly market to the people who want to be marketed to. So before importing anything to HubSpot, remove those cold leads, spam entries, deduplicate your database, and standardize key fields like job title or industries. Once things are cleaned up, you can segment your contacts into clear groups so everything enters HubSpot in a structured, usable way. One important thing to know is that you can't just copy Marketo Smart Campaigns into HubSpot. Instead, you'll need to rebuild your automations using HubSpot's workflow engine, which is more visual and it's connected to the CRM, and it's actually far easier to manage once you know how. This would include things like copying over lifecycle stage updates, MQL qualification, lead routing, SDR handoffs, as well as your nurturing sequences. You'll also want to leverage the HubSpot scoring property to build out things like lead scoring, where you can take into account company fields, contact fields, and even deal fields to talk about how well that lead is doing. The good news is this isn't just a rebuild, it's an opportunity to simplify. Rather than bringing over old complexity from Marketo, you can use this step to create a cleaner, more scalable RevOps engine inside of HubSpot. Marketo assets do not transfer directly into HubSpot. Again, you'll need to rebuild things like landing pages, emails, forms. The good news is HubSpot makes this a great opportunity to modernize your marketing. You can create new landing pages with flexible themes, rebuild email templates that your team can edit without the need for an expensive designer, and standardize your forms with a cleaner logic. And while you're doing it, it's a perfect time to clean up old assets and bring A/B testing into your new campaigns, because HubSpot has that feature which is super easy to use. We already know that integrations don't automatically transfer when you're doing any sort of migration. Old webhooks, custom APIs, and sync roles in Marketo usually need to be switched off so you can rebuild cleaner, more reliable connections inside HubSpot. But the great thing is the HubSpot has a plethora of native integrations all available via the HubSpot Marketplace. If they are not available on the HubSpot Marketplace, you can create private apps, set clear sync rules, and remember to test those data flows before you're going live. And if Salesforce is also involved, make sure lifecycle stages, lead statuses, and ownership rules are aligned before syncing any records. Sales, marketing, and leadership all rely on accurate reporting to make decisions. And if attribution or lifecycle tracking is misconfigured during a migration, trust in the new system can disappear fast. That's why this is one of the most important steps. So you're going to be wanting to rebuild your core Marketo reporting inside of HubSpot. Now, you might want to replicate some of those reports, but you're likely going to want to improve them so that you can do optimized lifecycles tracking from lead all the way to close one with clear source and channel attribution, campaign reporting dashboards, and pipeline and revenue reporting. When your reporting is set up properly, HubSpot becomes that true single source of truth for the entire business. Or if you're using HubSpot with Salesforce, especially the marketing team being able to attribute what is close one on the Salesforce side. Testing is your final safeguard before going live. This is where you can identify workflow errors, routing issues, or sync failures before they can truly impact real prospects and potentially customers. You want to test everything that matters. Have your testing team look at forms, lead routing, automated emails, scoring, lifecycle stage updates, landing pages, and integrations. Make sure those submissions map correctly, leads get assigned properly, email triggers trigger as expected, and your system stays in sync. Only once everything works exactly the way it should you give that green light to the final cutover. Good testing prevents surprises and protects your CRM, reporting, and customer experience from day one. Even the best migrations will not succeed if your team do not know how to use the tool for their operations. HubSpot is easy to use, but with any new system, adoption really depends on how you enable your people. Make sure the users understand the CRM, basic things like tasks, sequences, workflows, and how sales and marketing work together. You'll especially want to check that their emails are connected, calendars are integrated, because ultimately, it's all about having those tools into HubSpot, which makes it smarter. But let's not forget there are some common challenges when migrating from any platform. So let's go through the ones we see typically when migrating from Marketo to HubSpot. Even with a solid plan, migrations from Marketo to HubSpot can hit some roadblocks. One of the biggest is data mapping. We know Marketo fields don't always transfer cleanly, and if properties aren't set up correctly, you can end up with missing or broken data. Another issue is trying to rebuild every complex marketing campaign exactly the way it was. HubSpot's logic works differently, and copying old logic can create messy, bloated workflows. So you can simplify things when migrating to HubSpot. The database cleanup is also huge, and it's something that people often don't think about when migrating from one tool to another. Of course, integrations can cause challenges. Tools like Salesforce or ad platforms behave slightly differently in HubSpot, and if you misconfigure these, you can have issues which will lead to duplicates, sync issues, or even data that just doesn't make sense. And finally, adoption matters. Even the best migrations fail if teams aren't trained and they don't use HubSpot properly. That's why we find that working with a qualified HubSpot specialist or partner like RevOps Automated can help you avoid these pitfalls and set your team up for long-term success. If you would like to explore how RevOps Automated can support you with our complimentary CRM audit for migration, please get in contact with one of our solution specialists who would be more than happy to help you scope and quote for your migration.